Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Mariah, and here on my channel I post lifestyle, university, and physiotherapy related content. So if you're interested in that, make sure you subscribe, turn the notification bell all so you never miss a video. So, if you're new here and you don't already know, I'm a MSc Physio student at University of Birmingham. It's my first slash going on to be my final year. Basically this video is about my second placement that I had, which was in older person assessment and liaison for 6 weeks. I did a reel on that and I'll tag it up and below so you can check that out as well. But this video is just ultimately me doing a analysis of what I felt my strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and challenges were on this placement. So before you start a placement, well, Birmingham, I don't know how every university does it. I imagine every university probably does this the same way. But we are asked to send our placement educator many things, but among those many things we are asked to send is a SWOC or SWOT analysis, which again stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats or challenges. So SWOT or SWOC. Analysis just so they can get a rough idea of what we know, what we don't know, or what our strengths and weaknesses, blah, 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 blah are. It just helps make things a little bit smoother when you initially get there. Not going to lie to you, the initial SWOC analysis is a little bit awkward to write because ultimately you don't know a lot about that placement if you've never experienced it before. So usually like your challenges are much longer than your strengths. I mean, I know for my first placement, because it was my first ever clinical experience, my threats and my weaknesses and my strengths was, my strengths were weak and very low, and like the list for the weaknesses were really high, and then the list for the challenges were really long as well, because it's like obviously you've never experienced skills before. Whereas with this placement, challenges became such a smaller list and the strengths just keep strengthening out and they're stretching out and making it really longer. But in terms of your final SWOC analysis, I'm doing this a lot late because typically you're meant to get it done before your final assessment so your educator can look over it and then they understand like whether they did a good job and you were able to achieve the goals that you set at the start of the placement. But for me, I just decided to take a different approach with this placement. But I still want to do a SWOC analysis at the end. So we'll get into that. What I thought of this placement. Whew. Okay. So strengths regarding this placement. For me, the strengths of this placement was that I was able to take different styles of note taking and develop my own. Don't get me wrong, I feel like when I initially got to that placement, based off my first placement, I had a good technique of how to write notes, certain details that I should include, certain details that I shouldn't include. But then when going to my placement, I was about to say current, my placement that I was just on, I noticed that people write them a little bit shorter, a little bit more snappy, and I was like, oh, I like that, because I'm not really a person who, when I write things, I don't like to write around the bush. I kind of like to be like, that's a bush, you know what I mean? So like that, and then trying to find the right balance. And I noticed some people do bullet points in sections, and I was like, oh, I like that in sections, but I don't like the way it looks if it's bullet pointed throughout the whole soap notes, you know? So you just find what you really like, and I feel like my soap notes have gotten really good to the point that even one of the qualified physios, when he wrote me a bit of feedback, he was saying that he thinks my notes are even better than his notes. Like, if that ain't a strength, that ain't a strength. Yeah, come on now. But like, yeah, so that's a good thing for me. I would say that's my top strength. I'd say another strength of mine is that I'm eager, in terms of that, like, this placement helped push me a lot more getting out of my comfort zone, but I'm definitely eager to try doing things and get stuck in there when I feel comfortable to do so. Because I'm not gonna lie to you and say, yeah, I'm always so confident on placement, because I'm not. Like, but a strength is that I'm willing, I'm eager to learn, but just like in my own time. Like, so yeah, that's another strength of mine. Another strength on this placement, I would say, would be that like I was able to take on board feedback and apply it and make the changes. So I was able to do that when at your halfway assessment, you have like these goals and everything that you gave initially, and you want to see if you're keeping up to it, because if you reach the halfway assessment and the halfway point of your placement and you haven't achieved these goals, or you're not even on track to achieve these goals, you and your educator need to think about something to achieve those goals and, you know, get on track. So we came up with a list of things that my educator felt I needed to improve on, and I made sure that I took that on board and showed that I was improving, because you know, it doesn't look good at come the final when it doesn't look like you've even taken on board anything. It looks like it just went in one ear and out the other. So I think that's a strength of mine. Another strength of mine is how like confident I've become in my ability of being able to take patient information, and I'm talking not just off like digitally getting patient information, because I feel like I'm getting better with that, and I've gotten a lot better with that. There's just a few little things that I've missed just because I'm not used to the system necessarily, but I got better with time. But I'm talking being comfortable going over to a patient, gathering a social history, gathering like speaking to MD team. Like I always found that I'm more comfortable speaking to the patient than I am the other members of the MD team, but I'm also more comfortable speaking to the MD team in the presence of my educator. But if I'm in the presence of my educator, I don't really feel comfortable talking to a patient. As weird. I'm weird, okay? I don't know. It makes no sense to me either, because I'm a pretty confident person, but in that sense I'm like, anyway. So I'd say those are 3 strengths of mine. 3 weaknesses of mine that I would say for the end of the placement was that, like, even though my confidence has grown in terms of presenting things in the presence of educators or presence of qualified physiotherapists, that's still something I could work on, and that's still something that I will probably not necessarily put down as one of my top goals for the next placement, because I know that internally that that's something I need to work on. I think there's other things that I could prioritize over that, but for me, I think that's definitely a weakness. It still needs improving. I've put in down getting to terms with using digital notes. Obviously, every trust will be different. Some trusts are probably still on like handwritten notes. Some trusts are on digital notes. And when they like bring out these new systems, they usually like don't do the whole hospital or whole trust in one go. It's usually like department by department. And maybe I just wasn't on the department that had it at that point. But I mean, on this past placement, I had that. Another weakness of mine is put down is that, well, I mean, my handwriting doesn't affect this anymore, but that's cool because I was just reading my one I put down initially. Weakness of mine at the start of this placement is that, like, end of this placement, I've put down, I just feel like I've gotten a lot of skills, but I don't know why I feel like there were a lot more skills I could get. So maybe a weakness that I've put down is that not gaining enough skills. But to be fair, when I say that out loud now, it just sounds like I've ramaged together a random weakness just so I could have something there. So we'll just ignore that. So basically I need to work on figure out which what my weaknesses are. I know my educator said stuff like about tone and having like a bit more empathy in my voice. My voice is just kind of one tone, apart from when I'm like really, really happy, and even then, I still, you know, when you have a certain voice when you're talking to patients, that voice does not really do the whole, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. It comes across very patronizing, and I'm just like, what's it called? I don't like coming across patronizing, because if I'm in a hospital and I have someone talking to me, I don't want them to come across like they're patronizing me. Anyway, what's it called? So I think that's something that I've been told I need to work on, is tone. But then, and another thing is, obviously, you probably realize I speak pretty fast. I do try to slow it down, but then it just makes it very hard to think about what I'm saying. Like, I pause quite a bit if I'm slowing it down. It makes me very uncomfortable. But that's something I need to find the right balance. That's something in terms of weaknesses that I could work on. Now, on opportunities, as I shared in that reel, I got a lot of opportunities in that placement, and the perks of having all those opportunities is that they piqued my interest. And so, for instance, chest physio piqued my interest. I did it a few times. That's something I want to look more into. I want to find out more about it. Like things like suctioning. I pull that face because I'm like, like suctioning is cool to witness, apart from when you see the byproduct of suctioning, and you're like, not so cool no more. But I feel like I need to be exposed to that, and I mean, ultimately I have to get exposed to that at some point. So it's an opportunity for me to be like, hey, I want to learn more about that. Same thing with neuro. I want to see more about that. My interest has been piqued. Like, that's something I want to see more of. And like different therapies, such as like hydrotherapy, I got to see that. That's something I want to see more of. That's a great opportunity to put down on my SWOC analysis. And 3 challenges. I always put down the fact that I work on the weekend as a challenge, because you never know when it may become a challenge. So I put that down as a challenge because ultimately I could be much more well rested if I didn't work, but I work, so it is what it is. Another challenge I put down for this placement is that I was very comfortable with the team, which is a good thing because I felt comfortable, and I feel like that's why I was able to achieve a lot more, because I was comfortable with who I was working with. But then it could also be a challenge because then it's like, oh, you getting too friendly. You know what I mean? I don't know if you know what I mean, but like, it's a challenge. You gotta find the right balance of being able to fit in with the team but not acting like too friendly, because they'll be like, she knows she's a student, right? But like, stuff like that. So I've got that down there. And honestly, I can't think of another. I can only think of 2 now thinking about that with challenges on that placement. There wasn't anything I didn't feel like I couldn't say to my educator and get it resolved. I was just always, I'm pretty blunt, to be fair. For the most part, I don't really like I said, you know, buying around a bush. But yeah, so that's a quick SWOC analysis of my last placement. It was a great placement, loads of opportunities, loved every minute of it. And hopefully in the next week or so, I will find out where my 3rd placement is, and I'll let you guys know, so we can be excited together about it. But in the meantime, I'm enjoying my summer break, and I will be back at university come the end of September. So I will catch you guys up then with more uni related-ish content.